Hello friends, previously in two lectures we have seen about the ascending tracts. Now we will talk about the descending tract, which are also known as corticospinal tracts. So corticospinal tract from the cortex to periphery, they will carry the things or messages from the brain side to the motor areas which are going to act. So again, we have to see some major points in this particular lecture, that is location of cell bodies, synapse, level at which the fibers will be crossing, and somatotrophic organization. So talking about the locations, the corticospinal tract, we can see it is divided into two parts. The lateral corticospinal tract travels down the spinal cord within the lateral column. You can see the lateral column in the cross section of spinal cord from here. And the anterior corticospinal tract travels through the within the anterior column. So area is confirmed in which area the fibers will be traveled. So it is anterior one. You can see this is anterior corticospinal tract area. And for lateral corticospinal tract area, it will be in the lateral column. Previously, we have seen that for ascending, it was basically the posterior column which were responsible, and some of the anterior also. So the fibers will travel always in that particular uh, area only. Next, we can further divide the descending tracts on basis of some parts like on function, skilled movements of activities, the fiber tract will be lateral corticospinal tract. In some skilled write, music, that particular type of skilled movements will be from the lateral corticospinal tract, and the postural adjustment will be via anterior corticospinal tract. So additionally, descending tracts include the corticobulbar tract from cortex and descending tracts from the brainstem, which will be vestibulospinal, reticulospinal, rubberospinal, and tectospinal. You can take a small hint that wherever spinal comes after the word of spinal acts like an suffix, it will be for the descending tract. Spinal act as a prefix, it will be for the uh, ascending tracts. So here two basic divisions are there, but there are more fibers, tracts are there, especially from the brain stem, that is vestibulospinal. These are the names of nucleuses which are present in the brain stem. We'll talk about these in the next lecture. So on the functional, we have seen there will be two types. So descending motor tract, corticospinal fiber transmit information controlling the voluntary, discrete, and skilled movements. So we can see there will be again a three-part spinothalamic tract will bring the things, then it will be modulated in fasciculus gracilis or lunatus, and then the things will come for the anterior part. So this is anterior corticospinal tract involved in the coordinating of the postural energy. आप टेढ़े हो जाते हो, नीचे झुक जाते हो, तो वापस आपको पोस्टर मेंटेन करने के लिए this will act like anterior column, and whatever skilled thing we are doing, writing, reading, playing music or playing sports, where precise movement is needed, exact movement is needed, then this particular thing will be for the lateral corticospinal tract. So let's see what is the relation between all these things. So this was a spinothalamic tract. I think you can recall it, or you can see the previous video. Then fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus in the posterior column, which we have talked in the second video about the tracts. So this is how they are related to each other. Now talking about anterior and lateral tract functional when they are going to act together. So you can see precise skill movement, lateral cortical tract, anterior cortical tract is for postural adjustment. You see the man is climbing the staircase and changing the bulb from the holder. So this is a precise movement, will be controlled by lateral corticospinal tract, and this is postural adjustment from the anterior. So image, it's very clear that the motor functions, which you can see here, travels through the lateral corticospinal tract to coordinate the precise movement of muscles in the limb. Simultaneously, motor information also travels to the anterior corticospinal tract to allow the muscles of the tract to help in the stabilization of the body. So both are going to act simultaneously. Now let's see how the somatotrophic organization is here. Somatotrophic means where the parts of the body will be shown here. So you can see again CTLS, that is cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. So as seen below, the fibers from the lower level of cords are found laterally. जितना नीचे होगा उतना laterally within the tracts, while the fibers from higher are found medially. You can see cervical will be more medial and sacral will be most lateral. So like this, they are arranged in this particular area. Now, blood supply will be basically from both the supplies, that is anterior and posterior spinal arteries will supply the portions of lateral corticospinal tract, where anterior corticospinal tract will be supplied by the anterior spinal artery. You can simply remember anterior one will be from the anterior spinal artery, and the next, that is lateral one, will be from the anterior or posterior spinal arteries. Now in cortex, the corticospinal tract originates in the motor cortex, descending fibers from the corona radiata and converge to pass through the posterior limb of the internal capsule. This is motor area, where the things will be, from where the things will be passed down towards the spinal cord. Now a very interesting feature, internal capsule. The corticospinal tract fiber travels through the posterior limb of internal capsule. So you can understand there will be two limbs, anterior limb and posterior limb. So this side will be the anterior side, will be the anterior limb. Posterior limb will be in the posterior side. This area is called the internal capsule. So all the fibers which are coming from any particular type of cortex area, they have to converge and they have to pass through this particular limb, that is capsule. So corticospinal fibers will pass through the posterior limb specifically. You should remember like this. So if you see the somatotrophic arrangement, arm, trunk, and leg, this is how they are arranged on the posterior limb of the internal capsule. Now we have to see how the message is going to be passed from the cortex to the spinal cord or to the motor organs. So first of all, descending fiber converge to pass through the posterior limb. So जितना भी fiber होगा, they all will converge. They will converge like this, and they will pass through the posterior limb of the internal capsule. Then you can see from here, this is how they will go to the converging part from the posterior limb. Then we can see the corticospinal fiber descend ipsilaterally, means same side, through the middle to 3/3 of the crus cerebri of in the anterior part of midbrain. So then they will pass the midbrain through crus cerebri. This will be the crus cerebri of the midbrain. It will be in the same direction. No change of direction will be happen here. Then in the pons, they will break in many small bundles like this, and then it will pass to the next area, that is rostral medulla. The rostral medulla tract, in this, the tract will descend through the pyramids in the anterior part of medulla. Then it will pass to the caudal medulla. So at the junction of medulla and the spinal cord, most of the fibers cross the midline. They will cross the midline, and in the decussation of pyramids. Here the decussation of pyramids area will be happen. These crossed fiber go to the lateral corticospinal tract. Uncrossed fiber will be going descend as the anterior corticospinal. So it is medulla where the pyramidal fibers are going to be formed at the level of pyramids. So those who are going to cross it, they will be called as lateral corticospinal tract. Those will be uncrossed, that is 10 to 15%, that will be forming the anterior corticospinal tract. So this is pyramid where the decussation is going to happen. At the level of spinal cord, we now have two parts. One is lateral tract, one will be anterior tract. The lateral corticospinal tract terminates on lower motor neuron in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. The anterior corticospinal tract crosses the midline at the level where they terminate in their lower motor neuron. So both will terminate at lower motor neuron only. One will be on the same side and one will be crossing it. So you can see again, this is the lateral side. It will be passing through the same direction. And then you can see the anterior side. It will cross the midline at the level where they terminate at their lower motor neurons. So at the end, we can conclude that descending cortical tracts influence, first of all, the voluntary movements via lateral corticospinal tract and adjust the posture in relation to voluntary movement via anterior corticospinal tract. Upper motor neurons in the cortex project down through the posterior limb of the internal capsule. Then there will be pyramidal decussation. The fibers of lateral cortical crosses the midline and descend on the contralateral side of the spinal cord. to influence the lower motor neuron. Fibers of anterior corticospinal tract remain uncrossed in pyramidal decussation and descends on the ipsilateral side of the spinal cord. These fibers then project to both the sides of spinal cord to influence the interneurons that coordinate for the postural stability. So this was all about the corticospinal tracts. There are some more tracts where we haven't learned. This will be for the tracts which are arising from the brainstem. So we will first have to study the nucleus which are present on the brainstem, then we will talk.